That was loud.
That's how the show opens. That belch. That's it. Edit that shit in.
Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be fuck up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello, occultists, and welcome back to Occultae Veritatis. I am Ood Gallifrey, and in a few minutes you'll meet my co-hosts, Sage Murray and Leon Filger. This is the podcast where we explore hidden things, mysteries, conspiracies, and any dark part of reality that we find interesting. What you're about to listen to is part 2 of a 2-part story. In the first part, we learned about the dark and sometimes strange histories of Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo. If you don't mind dropping in the middle of a story, then by all means listen. But if you want to get some context and some history of these dark Canadian killers, then just listen to part 1. But before we get into the excitement, we're gonna get a little sauced with some What's Your Poison?
So, what's your poison?
So let's start with What's Your Poison, which is, as per the usual, my shitty fridge beer.
This time we're drinking Original 16 Canadian Copper Ale.
And as usual, it's fine.
I actually like that more than the regular.
Oh. Your drinking is very aggressive, Leon.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it.
Yeah, I like all 16 copper. It's fine. So what do we rate it? I rate it a 3 out of 10 because it's fine. I'm really boring.
A 3 out of 10? It's
okay,
great.
Maybe,
fuck it, 3 out of 10.
Okay, maybe like a 5 out of 10.
That's only like a pass, though. Right?
You know, the problem is that
most of my stuff's just a pass.
Original 16 Canadian Pale Ale is a fucking amazing beer.
Yeah, I like that beer.
It's one of my top 5 internationally ranked beers.
Mm-hmm.
And I find this 016 Copper is shittier than it. So why? Why does it need to be? Interestingly enough, I know number 1 of the 16, and he doesn't like this shit. The Copper. He didn't like it. The original 16 was his baby. I love it. I drank a pint of it with him at a beer tasting at the original 16 Great Western Brewery. Cool. And it was fantastic. And I think the Copper is like that kind of slow second cousin.
Well, I personally don't like the Copper beers. Like, I like the hoppier beers. This is a little too malty for me.
You know, I like this more than the original 16, I think.
Oh, really?
Well, fuck you then.
Fuck you.
I don't know. It's I think it's crisper and more enjoyable.
Okay.
It's got kind of like a skunky
It's not skunky
flourish
at all.
to it.
No, that's the malty
Little,
flourish.
like
a little
mildly
dark.
landfillish.
I don't taste that at all. I mean, I do not have a talented palate.
No,
as we found out as we found out when I tried to taste wine, but I don't know. It's crisp, it's clean, it's enjoyable. I don't get any aftertaste. It's nice.
I'll give it 3 Lorne Calverts out of 2 Brad Walls, a Grant Devine, and a Ross Thatcher.
Ooh. Okay, well, that one does make sense to me.
Saskatchewan references. Check it. Those are all former premiers.
Yeah.
If you're not from here.
I mean,
Lorne Calvert, who I polka'd with once.
I polka'd with his wife Betty.
Oh,
and then I polka'd with your little sister.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, that's
that's
a good
cute.
time.
You probably polka'd with me.
Is this a euphemism?
No.
No.
I used to professionally Ukrainian dance.
Oh,
so I went to all
this
sorts of
is real
things.
dancing.
Oh, did you see that comment on Twitter?
I know, I was really excited about
Yes,
that.
somebody on Twitter said, "Oh, Sage is my favorite because she Ukrainian dances."
I did. Well, I don't anymore because I'm old and fat. But hey,
that is not true.
That's not true at all.
You know, I'm not much of a beer guy. Like, I'm usually more into just alcohol or mixes or anything like that.
Alcohol, like in general.
Just alcohol.
Just the rubbing kind.
I should have said hard alcohol. But anyway, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Like, I don't usually like beer, but I like this one.
Cool.
All
well,
right.
I'm glad that you like my fridge beer.
Sure.
A remarkable, beautiful girl, very athletic, just sweet, sweet, sweet. You know, would never hurt anybody.
She was walking home and she was passing by a church, and there's the car, and there's Karla. And she's got this map out, and she's trying to fold it open, and she's asking for help.
And then that's when Paul Bernardo came out of the car and shoved her in back.
It was Karla who kept the pressure on Kristen French's head, pulled her hair to make sure that she couldn't alert anybody that she was being kidnapped.
He kept saying, go through what we're going to do. So I said, well, if we see a girl, we're going to stop. I'm going to ask her for directions. I'm going to try and get her over to the car. So he wanted her right beside him so he could hold the knife to her. And I sat in the back seat, actually more in the middle of the front seats. And I held her hair and I held her head down.
All right, so let's get into my episode, which is part 2 of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. So at the age of 17, Homolka attended a pet convention in Toronto and met the 23-year-old Paul Bernardo. He was an attractive blonde, appeared to be smart, and charmingly persuasive. The two had sex on the first day that they met, which is reminiscent of my husband and I.
Aww.
We're each other's fucking chuck, and now we're married.
Funny how that turns out sometimes.
I've never heard the term fucking chuck before. No, it's new to me.
Fucking chuck.
I love
we
it.
both. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So sorry, my dad, who's listening to this podcast.
Oh.
That's a different story for a different time. But now, we've been married for 6 years and have a 3.5-year-old son. So they quickly discovered that they shared the same sadomasochistic desires, with Paul moving quickly into the position of master, and Homolka willingly taking the role of the slave, in quotation marks, obsessed with fulfilling Bernardo's every fantasy. Which in most normal couples, fine, off you go, have fun with that. But in this case, it's really murdery. Over the next few years, the relationship between Homolka and Bernardo intensified, and they shared and encouraged each other's psychotic behavior. It was during this time that Bernardo was involved in raping women with the approval of Homolka. The uncaught Bernardo was dubbed as the Scarborough Rapist by the police and the media. His specialty was to attack women getting off of buses, making them endure violent anal rape and different levels of humiliation. So he would just kick the shit out of them and then force them into whatever he wanted them to do.
And he was given that name before he was caught?
Yeah, there was a rash of rapes and it was the Scarborough Rapist. But
Scarborough is where the bare naked ladies are from.
Yeah. Okay, well, they're nicer
They weren't
than...
the Scarborough Rapist.
No, they were not the Scarborough Rapist. They sing about millions of dollars in green dresses. Around 1 a.m. on the 4th of May, 1987, which is the year that I was born, a young woman was attacked and raped within minutes of getting off a bus near her home in Scarborough, a suburb of Toronto. This was one of a series of up to 24 rapes or attempted rapes that took place over a 5-year period.
24?
Yeah, and what's the difference between a rape and an attempted rape? I would call them the same thing. The targets of the man called the Scarborough Rapist, who is Paul Bernardo, were teenage girls and young women. Most of the attacks happened outdoors, but at least one instance, the perpetrator broke into the victim's house. The attacks were accompanied by beatings, intense verbal abuse, dire threats to discourage victims from going to the police. On one occasion, a uniformed Toronto police officer staking out a bus shelter spotted a suspect hiding under a tree and pursued him on foot, but the suspect escaped, who was Paul Bernardo.
And if he's starting to break into houses, he's starting to get more confident.
Yeah.
So he's starting to become more of a threat.
So, Homolka, which we learned about in the first episode. So if you've just started listening to us now, go listen to my first episode about Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, or else you'll be super confused.
Yeah.
So on November 17th, 1988, Metropolitan Toronto Police formed a task force that was committed to arrest the Scarborough Rapist. Investigators did not get a significant lead until May of 1990, when a victim provided them with a description of her attacker's face. Police created a computer composite portrait that was given wide circulation, including publication in newspapers. Among the 16,000 responses received over the following weeks were 3 from people who said the portrait resembled Paul Bernardo.
Pretty good results, actually.
Investigators twice questioned Bernardo, who lived in his parents' Scarborough home at the time. They were satisfied that he was not a likely suspect, but as a matter of routine, they took samples of his hair, blood, and saliva for DNA testing against specimens found on a rape victim's clothing. DNA testing was still new in Canada, and the Centre of Forensic Sciences in Toronto had only one qualified scientist and one technician. So they were like super...
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so they were like super funded and understaffed.
Well, there's there's rape kit crises happening all over the country, right?
Well, who wants to have a rape kit? They just
Crises.
like shovel around.
One crisis, two
shuffle
crises.
around in there more. And as someone who has given birth and been shuffled in, it's not fun being shuffled more after you've experienced trauma there.
Oh, no kidding.
The samples taken from dozens of men questioned in the Scarborough rapist case were among 50,000 collected at the time by police investigating numerous cases around Ontario. By December 23rd, 1990, Bernardo, who was 26 at the time, was now engaged to Karla Homolka, who was 20, and was living in her family's home in St. Catharines, Ontario. That evening, while Homolka's parents and youngest sister Lori slept, Homolka and Bernardo dragged the youngest sister, 15-year-old Tammy Lynn, so Bernardo could rape her.
Jesus.
Yeah. Homolka participated in and videotaped the sexual assault of her sister.
Wow.
So there's got to be some serious sicknesses happening there for that to be okay with either of them.
Well, you couldn't have any empathy for your family to do that.
How fucking crazy do you have to be in that case to be not criminally responsible? Because that seems like a crazy fucking thing to do to me. Does that qualify you for mental illness?
Well,
I'm sure that
yeah.
Yeah, Cammy, what?
Cammy's here, sorry.
Yes, and I'm currently doing psychiatry.
Sprint to this.
I find this case super fascinating, and she fits almost all of the criteria Karla Homolka does for having a personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder with psychopathic tendencies. But she's very with it. She's she's functioning. She knows where she is. She's not having perceptual disturbances like hallucinations or auditory. Like, she's never said that someone else has told her to do these things or that she's had command hallucinations. So this is not her being psychotic. This is like a true psychopath.
Like she has, you said anti-personality disorder? Or signs of it?
Antisocial personality disorder, yeah.
So I guess, is she in control of her own faculties and choices under that?
Mm-hmm. And people are, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they're totally with it. They're just,
So as far as not criminally responsible...
Well, usually when you're talking about that, you're talking about psychosis. And it's a bit weird because the social definition of psychotic is really different, right? From the medical one.
Yeah.
You have to think about false experiences, right? Like people that are hallucinating, people that have like command perception, like that was just mentioned as something where you believe that some sort of controlling being is in control of you and making you do things. I know you guys there was a podcast on Vince Lee, for example.
Right.
So thinking about psychosis there, it's a break with reality. It's not someone who's
like she has that. She just is psychotic.
That's the worst part is you're in touch with reality and yet you did this.
Yeah. Your reality is just that skewed. And
so in that state, would she think what she was doing was okay? Like, did she know she was being bad or
usually the people that have this type of personality disorder are aware of their actions and enjoy causing harm and inflicting pain to others. That's part of how I like to think about it is like the Joker from Batman.
Right.
He is like a true psychopath, total antisocial personality disorder. He's aware of what he's doing to people, and it brings joy.
Do they
to
know
him.
it's wrong? Or do they justify that it's right?
I think that they do know that it's wrong, but they don't care.
Okay.
Right? There's a complete lack of empathy.
That makes sense.
Like, she took steps to hide her behavior and not talk about it. So I think she knew that at least by society's definitions it was wrong.
Pretty fucky either way.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So early in the morning on the 24th of December, Tammy, still unconscious, vomited and stopped breathing. Bernardo and Homolka dressed Tammy and carried her to a bedroom. They cleaned up the crime scene, hid the video cassette, and called 911. They were married in Niagara-on-the-Lake on the 29th of June. That same day, boaters and fishermen at Lake Gibson, which was south of St. Catharines, discovered concrete blocks that encased human arms, legs, feet, and a head. The next day, another man found a human torso just floating and hanging out in the water, which is super gross.
Jesus.
The remains were identified as those of a woman named Leslie I can't pronounce his name. Maffey?
Steve.
Mahaffy. Maffey?
Yes.
Who was age 14 of Burlington, Ontario.
Can we call her a woman? I think
A
it's
girl?
a child.
A child.
A child.
Oh, a child. That's yucky.
I think.
Yeah, no,
What does
I'd
the panel
agree.
say?
Well,
14
is
pretty
actually
child.
the age that you can give
Consent.
In Ontario?
Oh, I don't know if it's in Ontario.
No, it's 16 in Canada. They raised it.
Oh, did they raise it?
Is it not
If you're
provincial
2
anymore?
years.
Yeah.
No, it's federal.
Oh,
Okay. I get, it depends on the maturity of
Whatever.
this.
14-year-old.
I think in the context of being murdered, you're a child.
Yeah.
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 Like,
And
I
like
would
have
think-
your
I will
like
agree
your
with that.
torso.
I will agree with that.
Like you were probably thinking in the context of can they
Like
consent
sexual
to their
consent, yeah.
well, and can they consent to their own medical procedures and their own like
Yeah.
That's what
decisions?
I'm always thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, that's reasonable.
No, but like that's normal. Normally, we don't have to think about what if they're raped and murdered. Is that
Yeah,
statutory
are they,
rape
yeah,
or
are they,
regular
that's
rape?
good.
Regular.
We can all agree it was well before her time.
Yeah,
She was
very
fucking-
sad. Very sad.
She was like in grade 9.
Yeah.
Where was I? Her parents had reported her missing on the 15th of June. While police undertook the investigation of the Maffey murder, Paul and Karla Bernardo were honeymooning in Hawaii,
As you do.
which seems pretty consistent with Cammie's inference that she maybe suffered from some sort of a personality. They both suffered from some sort of personality disorder.
Yeah, just they couldn't care.
Mm-hmm.
They sound like Trump.
Kind of.
Minus
Well.
like the kill. Well,
Well,
if you get other people to do the killings and rapes for you, does it still make you a psychopath?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
it does.
that's what Karla was doing, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Police searching for clues to Maffey's killer were unaware of evidence that would connect the crime to the Scarborough rapist. Meanwhile, Tammy Homolka's death wasn't under criminal investigation at all because our legal system is garbage. Almost a year later, in April of 1992, the Niagara Regional Police sought help from the American Federal Bureau of Investigation. So an FBI group of criminal profiling experts produced a psychological portrait of the murderer as a sexual predator who would probably kill again. On April 30th, 1992, a female body was found in a ditch along a rural road in the north end of Burlington. The face was battered and the hair had been shaved from the head. So an act of, unless you consent to it, like the beautiful, sexy Mrs. Oud Gallifrey Daniel, who has her head shaved and she looks wonderful.
And looks good. Yeah, she really rocks.
No,
that
she
look.
yeah.
But
yeah.
this was an act of humiliation.
Maybe we'll post
for
a
the
photo
woman.
of just her scalp.
Sure.
She's got a good scalp. But an old injury, a missing tip of the left pinky finger, immediately told investigators that the corpse was that of Kristen French, who was age 15 of St. Catharines, Ontario.
And she was the famous killing. That was what sort of broke the whole thing.
Yeah,
open.
well, and Tammy, too.
Yeah.
French's parents had reported her missing on the 16th of April. A shoe identified as hers was found in the parking lot of Grace Lutheran Church, which she passed by every day going to and from school because she was a fucking high school kid, 15. Then a witness reported seeing a scuffle in the parking lot on the afternoon of the 16th. It had appeared to the witness that two people were forcing a girl into a car she described as a cream-colored Chevrolet Camaro. Police searched the parking lot and found a torn fragment of a map of Scarborough and a lock of brown hair. They began an exhaustive check of cream-colored Camaros, following what turned out to be a mistaken lead.
Oh, shit.
Because Bernardo's car was a gold-colored Nissan. Like, I don't know anything about cars, but that seems like an honest mistake to make.
Oh, and eyewitness memory is very faulty, and it's it's not their fault that they were convinced. It's very easy to become convinced of a false memory.
Well, we talked about that in the Martinsville Satanic Panic
Oh, yes.
case. Throwback. Acting on a tip that Bernardo had a penchant for violence and aggressive sex. Police interviewed him on the 12th of May and once again dismissed him as a prime suspect in what was now being called the 2 schoolgirl murders of southern Ontario. Mafi's remains were exhumed, and medical examiners found bruises on the back that had similarities to the blunt force injuries on Kristen French's body. For the first time, police connected the 2 murders. Niagara Regional Police, working with the Halton Regional Police, established a special task force to conduct the interview into the 2 crimes.
It must have been heartbreaking for the parents. I mean, not only did one of your daughters die an untimely death, but they have to ask to exhume her body afterwards.
Yeah,
and I imagine, like, taking somebody that you've gone through grieving with and to have them dug up again, it must be just terrifying and heartbreaking.
That'll be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to do that. On the 31st of July, a reenactment of French's abduction was shown on TV. It generated thousands of tips, but no substantial lead. So on the 6th of January 1993, Karla Homolka was admitted to St. Catherine's General Hospital after Bernardo beat her viciously with a flashlight.
Fuck.
He was arrested and charged with assault with a weapon, and then released on bail. Homolka never returned to the couple's house in Port Dalhousie. A month later, the Center of Forensic Scientists finally matched Bernardo's DNA with that of the Scarborough rapist. Police put Bernardo under surveillance and tapped his telephone. Fucking finally.
Yeah.
Fucking finally.
Ooh, that took a really long time. Like, what did I say? Like 1987? He's been raping for that many years? I can't do math. I'm drunk. Sorry.
Raping away.
Just raping for years.
I mean, really, the lack of people in that field to do those tests. Like,
yeah, well,
it
they had
costs
like
lives.
one tech and one investigator.
If he was a dinosaur, he'd be a Raposaurus Rex.
He would be a Raposaurus Rex.
Yeah.
Homolka was initially uncooperative with police. After consulting with her lawyer, she said she would testify against Bernardo on the condition of being granted immunity from persecution. Ugh.
Gross.
Yeah. The Attorney General for Ontario would not agree to immunity, but was willing to concede a reduced sentence. Then on the 17th of February, Bernardo was arrested for the murders of Mafi. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce that name.
It's okay, she's dead. She doesn't care.
Well, her family might.
They're probably dead too.
Whatever. Fuck you.
Fuck you too.
On the 17th of February, Bernardo was arrested for the murders of Mafi and French and the Scarborough rapes.
It sounds like Mafia and Friends, like it's a children's show, but they're actually rape victims.
Oh my god. Why am I friends with you? I'm just kidding, I love you. I'm just kidding, I love
Carry
you.
on.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Anyway, back to Paul and Karla.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm not sorry.
I know you're not. Fuck you. Police subjected Homolka to 4 days of interrogation. She blamed Bernardo for her sister's death. She described how Bernardo had kidnapped Mafi from the yard of the girl's home and how she and Bernardo had lured French into their car in the parking lot. She said both girls were used as sex slaves before Bernardo strangled them to death. French had been made to watch a television news broadcast of her father's emotional plea for her safe return. That's fucked.
Yep.
Homolka claimed Bernardo had boasted to her of raping at least 30 women. Again, that's fucked. Homolka described herself as a battered wife who was forced to participate in Bernardo's crimes and who lived in terror of him. A search of their house turned up a list of the Scarborough rapes, a book of a deviant sexual nature, whatever the fuck that means. A hunting knife, handcuffs.
It's the Holy Bible.
It may be. No,
it is.
The Bible's pretty deviant.
It is indeed.
Of a sexual nature, a hunting knife, handcuffs, and a videotape of Homolka and Bernardo engaged in sexual activity with 2 unidentified young women. Homolka, according to the videotape, was a willing participant of both encounters. She admitted to police that one of the girls had been drugged and was later unaware that she had been raped.
That's what happens.
Which is yucky.
Mm-hmm.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. I use the word yucky because apparently I'm like 10. On July 6, 1993, as part of a plea bargain with prosecutors, Homolka was convicted after pleading guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter in the Mafi and French murders. She was sentenced to 2 12-year prison terms to be served concurrently, so that means at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 12 years. Authorities weren't aware that the initial police search of the Bernardo residence had missed a bundle of videotapes. How the fuck would you miss a bundle of videotapes?
But it was the 90s. Everyone had a bundle of videotapes. Most of them were The Little Mermaid.
Okay.
No, they were actually videos from MTV.
Yeah.
But
right?
and much music.
Yeah, you would record, yeah.
Okay, I had lots of those. Tapes that would prove to be the most damning and publicly explosive evidence of the case. So they just missed those ones.
Oh, goody.
On May 6, 1993, Bernardo's lawyer had retrieved 6 8mm tapes that had been hidden in the Bernardo home. They were not turned over to police until the 22nd of September in 1994. The tapes showed in graphic detail the rape of Tammy Homolka and the torture and rapes of Mafia and French. Homolka appeared as Bernardo's consenting accomplice, not at all as a frightened forced participant.
And that's what she told.
Yeah,
the
that's
police.
what she told the police. That
She knew what she was doing.
But she was apparently into it. By this time, the case was dominating headlines and capturing the attention of people across North America. News of the tapes prompted public outrage, like they do. The media accused the prosecution of making a deal with the devil and giving Homolka only a 12-year sentence for her role in the crimes.
I mean, fair point.
Yeah. Yeah, she got off pretty light.
And can I say, sometimes the Canadian concurrent sentence thing feels a little bit fucked up.
Oh yeah, like I worked with CSC for a while, and it's yucky.
It's weird, right?
It's weird.
Like,
yeah.
I know Americans, they don't do that as much, right?
No, they don't. They
like
just
if
pummel
you
into
get
the ground.
25-year sentences in the States, like
they're consecutive.
That's 100 years.
You die in jail.
But
You die in jail.
concurrent, that's just 5.
Just 5, yeah. Exactly. It's strange.
It's fucked up.
It is fucked up. However, the Crown was said it was obligated to stand by its agreement. Jury selection for the Bernardo trial began on the 1st of May 1995. The Crown opened its case on the 18th of May. The trial lasted 4 months, during which Homolka spent 17 court days in the witness box. Bernardo was found guilty of all charges against him, 2 counts each of first-degree murder, kidnapping, forcible confinement, and aggravated sexual assault, and 1 count of committing an indignity to a human body. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and declared a dangerous offender, which is really hard to get if you know anything about corrections. Like, it's super hard to get a DO designation.
Mm-hmm. And that means you're a danger to others in the facility?
They never let you out.
Yeah, basically, like, your sentence is, like, indeterminate.
Until death?
Yeah, until death.
Well, I've had like, when I worked in halfway houses, and I had dangerous offenders stay in the halfway house with me all alone at age 20 in the middle of the night, which is super fun.
But you're badass like that.
I actually saved a guy. I called the ambulance on him because he was having a heart attack. So
and he was a dangerous offender?
And he was a dangerous offender.
Had a girl.
There you go.
Fun fact. That was one of my prouder moments. I saved a life.
It's the real truth. Heart disease kills.
Yeah, heart disease. Yeah. He's like, fucking call the ambulance, Sage, because I am having a heart attack, is basically what he said.
And you did it, though.
And I did it. And I raced up and downstairs. It was very exciting.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
You're way more badass now.
I was badass before. Where was I? All right. 5 years later, in the year 2000, both the Ontario Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court of Canada turned down Bernardo's efforts to appeal his murder convictions, which,
Good.
is fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In 2006, Bernardo's lawyer said that his client had confessed in 2005 to 10 additional sexual assaults. Fun. Since 2013, he has been incarcerated at the Millhaven Maximum Security Prison in Bath, Ontario, which is a pretty hardcore one.
That's like one of Canada's 3 supermax?
Yeah, there's a few maxes, and that's one of them. Another one I've gotten to visit, where I've actually gotten death threats from people, which is fun.
Who are murderers?
Yeah, who
so
are
they're
murderers.
serious. They'll do it.
No, he apologized after and hugged me.
Oh, as they do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let somebody hug me after they death threatened me.
He death threatened me. He told me that he would fucking kill me because I wouldn't let him bring home an extra piece of meat.
Oh, all hugs are off after that.
And then I sent him back to jail for 3 months, and he came back and hugged me and said that he was sorry. That's a fun story. Where was I? The Bernardo Homolka crimes, apart from their impact on the victims and their families, had a wide-ranging impact long after the trials had concluded. The videotapes showing the rape and murder of their victims were ordered destroyed by an Ontario court. Bernardo's lawyer, Ken Murray, who initially retrieved the tape...
Who's your uncle?
No, he's not. This is clearly a fake name.
Carry on.
who initially retrieved the tapes from their hiding place in the Bernardo home, was charged in 1997 with obstruction of justice and conspiracy to obstruct justice for failing to turn over the tapes to the police. Murray was acquitted of those charges in 2000, which may or may not have been true. I don't know. I'll let you decide, occultists. In 1996, are we still good?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In 1996, a government inquiry into the investigation of Bernardo...
Is it inquiry or inquiry?
Whatever. Fuck you.
Carry on.
In 1986, a government inquiry into the... You're probably right. Into the investigation of Bernardo found that police had made numerous mistakes, that rivalries among police agencies had further harmed the investigation, and that some of Bernardo's crimes might have been prevented if his DNA sample had been processed and matched more quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Because fuck the police.
They cost lives.
Yeah. They literally did in this case, I'd say.
Is that more related again to like one person matching DNA and one technician?
Yeah, that part, like, I feel bad about that. But maybe if they had been better staffed and people, I don't know, like, people like to murder people.
Well, it sounds like they just needed to allocate They needed to allocate funding more responsibly.
Yeah. Karla Homolka served her full 12-year sentence and was released from prison in 2005 under a series of judge-imposed conditions, including restrictions on her movement and a ban on any contact with anyone under the age of 16. Those conditions were overturned by another judge only months later, prompting criticism from the Mafi and French families. Obviously, Homolka settled in Montreal, where she gave birth to a son in 2007. Ugh, I know. Oh,
2007. 11 years later.
Mm-hmm. Homolka then lived on the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe under the name of Leanne Bordelais.
You fucking ratted her out now.
No, that's good. She should.
Well, it was on
rat her out.
Rat
her out.
Okay,
so
Leanne Bordelais. Yeah.
So now you got to target the podcast specifically to that island.
Yeah. Bordelais. The people of the island of
Can we
Bordelais.
find an interview with someone who lives there?
Yeah,
Do
it.
And ask them if they know Leanne.
Yeah, do you know Leanne?
And her crazy fucking son, because he's probably crazy.
But also how many people are there? Because people do be like, hey, do you know Steve from Canada?
Yeah, but she's got some seriously good art hung.
Leanne Bordelais. That's a pretty...
well-decorated house in wherever the fuck we're talking about.
And she's probably super white.
Very.
Along with her new husband, Thierry, who is brother of her prison lawyer, Sylvie Bordelais. So she married the brother of her prison lawyer.
Ugh.
I know, it's very incestuous.
Wow.
And her 3 children. In 2012, upon being discovered in Guadeloupe by a Canadian journalist, Homolka returned to Quebec because why not?
Because no one's going to find you in Quebec.
No, never,
Too
no
many
one.
trees.
It's like not even a part of Canada.
No, it's not.
Basically not.
Just kidding.
Just
kidding. We love you, Quebec.
We do. We love Quebec.
We have 0 listeners from Quebec.
Okay, good.
Well, if
now we don't.
would re-record all podcasts in French, then we would.
From Quebec?
If they want to leave Canada, okay.
Whatever.
I'm okay with
you
that.
do you.
Yeah.
But the poutine.
Oh, I love the poutine.
Oh, that's the
well,
best
the
part.
trucks can get across the border just fine. So we still have the best
we're
forms.
good.
Okay, I like that. News reports as of August 20th, 2016, placed Homolka as living with her children in, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Chateauguay?
Ask the French speaker behind you.
Chateauguay.
He'll pronounce it for you.
I got it right? Sure. Okay, sweet. He said sure, so send your hate mail for my mispronunciation to Mr. Cammy Clark. In Quebec. Homolka was Homolka was reportedly angry with reporters' attempts to speak with her. Parents of children attending the same school as Homolka's children expressed great concern despite reassurances from the school and the school board.
This is scary. You never expect something like that here. You know, you hear about it in all other places and that you don't expect it in your own community. It's such a calm, collective community. Everybody looks out for everybody, and then hearing this,
it's scary.
It shakes things up. Not only that, what do you tell your children?
First and foremost, I can't believe that she actually had kids, but I mean, she has more freedom than I do.
In what respect?
I need to go through a whole rigmarole for a pardon in order to travel just because of a past violation from like 15 years ago, and yet somebody who did these things is free.
I really feel for her children, you know. Those are the ones who are suffering in the end because everybody's going to be, you know, they're the plague, you know. It's not their fault. They just want to live a normal childhood. And now she's kind of, unfortunately, it's tarnished because of her actions. I'm very surprised that, that she's having a little, like, you know, her actions are being swept under the rug and now she just gets to pretend she's somebody else. It's uncomfortable. It's very eerie. Things like that, they don't get to have a retake in life, you know?
I'd like parents to step up and make us think about this. I don't think it should be left alone. I do feel bad for her children. Big time. They don't deserve this. But at the same time, I don't deserve to feel uncomfortable sending my children to school knowing that she's at the schoolyard fence and living in my community. You know what? They do end-of-year picnics and everything at the end of the year. No. And all the parents go, all the kids go and everything like that. For all I know, I was sitting next to her last year, you know, and she was around all of our children.
Also, like, she's done her time, so we really have no more hold on her, like, legally.
But
I have released a gross pedophile who I knew without a shadow of a doubt was going to re-offend, and I gave him some of my old cutlery.
That was too kind of you.
Well, like, I knew that he was going to, but there's nothing you can do.
You could put Mad Cow on the cutlery.
You could put Mad
Cow.
But also, I'm not a vigilante.
Yeah, that would also be very bad.
Vigilante?
Vigilante.
Just kidding.
Fuck you.
I don't know.
I'm just telling everyone to fuck off today.
Yeah, that would be murder. I agree.
Yeah. So
don't stoop.
Like, he's probably back in jail. So I found this article from 2017, which I'm sure that you've all read. A private Montreal elementary school is moving to quell public fears following media reports about Karla Homolka doing some volunteer work there.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, she did a bunch of volunteer work in her kid's schools, like I'm going to do with my kid.
Wait,
although I'm not
didn't
a
you say the
murderer.
judge put like restrictions on no contact?
But then it was overturned by another judge, like a few months later.
It's
so
fine.
she was
Okay.
just like
full PTA mom, like I'm on the board, doing
footloose
the
and
things.
fancy free.
Terrifying.
So the school, which was operated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is another episode for another time, says it won't allow anyone with a criminal record to volunteer in any capacity on school grounds. The church issued a brief statement that didn't mention Homolka by name, but said that it has heard and listened to the concerns of parents and members of the community uncomfortable with recent reports in the media. Local media captured images of Homolka using a purse to hide her face on as she dropped off her children outside the school in Montreal's Notre Dame de Grace neighborhood. City News also reported that Homolka had occasionally volunteered at the school, including supervising a field trip and bringing her dog into the classroom to interact with children. Which I don't know. I think that's fine.
The dog thing is fine, but the field trip is...
The field trip is sketchy.
Yeah, field trip is super sketchy.
Well, especially since she has a history of deriving sexual pleasure from the rape and murder of 14-year-olds.
Literally taking them from a bus.
Yeah, literally just like scooping them up.
And if, like, take Vince Lee, like, his schizophrenia was treated and handled, and he was given a treatment program where he was reintegrated into society. Can you...
Where she probably wasn't.
Can you do the same thing with...
Not without meds and therapy, right?
Mm-hmm. And there's no like for personality disorders. I mean, we can do cognitive behavioral therapy, we can do psychotherapy, but really, like in reality, you can't change someone's personality. Like it's pretty difficult.
It's difficult
to do that. Yeah.
It's like ingrained developmental disorders. It's interesting. My favorite psychiatrist ever in this city said to me that if you could, what they would do for personality disorders would be a minimum of 2 hours a day, every day for a month as an acute intervention for personality disorders. Mm-hmm. And that ain't no one in hell is ever going to pay for that kind of a program.
No. Yeah.
And that was for your run-of-the-mill personality disorders.
This Not is like an intense one like Karla's.
Yeah, so I don't even know what you would do for something like this.
Yeah, it seems...
Who is that psychiatrist?
Dr. Marcoux mentioned it.
He is my psychiatrist. Hey, Marcoux.
Is that allowed for us to mention?
Yes, it is, because Leon Filger is seen by Dr. Jean Marcoux.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he said he had a 1 hour and a 2 hour recommendation, and like it was. I'll just say everything I thought about psychiatry was reformed by my experiences with him back in the day when I was in medical school, and I'm a big fan.
Nice.
But it's the kind of thing where it's considered untreatable by a lot of people, because when you think about schizophrenia, it's like, oh, you break with reality. We have these medications that bring you back to reality, and yeah, they have a lot of shitty side effects, but you're in the real world now.
Yeah.
This is so different because she's in
It's
the
like-
world
it's
and
her
making these
personality,
choices.
yeah.
Like she's driven to these choices, but it's her.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is kind of frightening to think of her.
Call back to lobotomy episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like schizophrenics aren't scary.
No.
Schizophrenics commit less crimes than non-schizophrenics.
Schizophrenics are scared and sad and confused.
People who have schizophrenia are like, I did meet one really, this is so off topic.
That's okay.
But
Go
I
for
did
it.
meet one person who has schizophrenia who was like super cheery. And his only hallucination he had while he was on his meds was that he would watch a soccer game that would appear out he was in the hospital for medical reasons, like non-psychiatric reasons. And he had a soccer game that would happen on the rooftop out his window across the street.
That's fucking awesome.
It was great. And he said he didn't know the outcome. Like it would just be this game that would be playing all the time and he never knew what was going to happen. And it's like, that's the best symptom ever.
Yeah. When you're trapped in a hospital bed watching soccer, like live soccer all day is perk.
That's what he said. He's like, they asked me about upping my dose, and I said, no, this is fine.
Did he hallucinate those stupid horns they have?
Vuvuzelas.
I didn't ask him about the vuvuzelas or whatever, but
Vuvuzelas.
That would ruin it
We're
for
getting
me.
into fucking
It's
pronunciation.
vuvuzelas.
Vuvuzelas.
I don't know.
Well, my pronunciation of vuvuzelas was wrong.
Apparently it was.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Fancy med school bullshit can't present
Yeah,
vuvuzelas.
stupid
Can't present
doctor.
nothing.
I have a Bachelor of Arts, so fuck you, you medical doctor.
I will always, always,
I'm just kidding.
always,
I'm just
always
kidding.
say that an MD doesn't make you necessarily smart.
No, it doesn't.
It means that you got into a school and then you finished. Like I'm really good at tests.
Okay. Well,
Doesn't
I still think
mean
it's
I'm
fine.
smart.
It's a way of thinking, and it's a certain level of dedication.
Right.
That's
well, my
why
little
people become
sister is
doctors.
in vet med right now, and she's in her 3rd year. So she's,
Always pick C.
Yeah.
That's like rule number 1.
Yeah.
I'm really good at talking about feelings, but not having them
Yeah,
myself.
I run a monthly trivia night, and I find myself selecting the answer as C more often. I have to watch myself.
All right, 20 who? That's it.
Yeah.
So Paul's still in jail, and his parole hearing basically keeps getting pushed further and further back because he's never going to get out. And Karla's just roaming around Quebec.
I find that incredibly disturbing.
Yeah.
And I also find it, well, from a medical standpoint, I'd be very interested to see what's going to happen with her children. Because there's a lot of theories about how psychopaths are like made in the womb, right?
Right.
And how like with increased serotonin and like different neurotransmitters that occur, like we essentially like, people that are psychopaths like breed psychopaths. There is that theory. So it'd be interesting to see like what happens with
Maybe we'll do a
her
follow-up
multiple
episode.
children.
Yeah, because she's got more than one kid.
Yeah, now she's got 3 kids.
3 kids.
And if
With are they all with the same
as far
lawyers,
as the Thierry
brother?
As far as I could find, yeah, they're all with the same man.
Yeah. And if
Same
you're being
partner,
raised
sorry.
by the psychopath, then you're getting both the nature and the nurture of it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Because she's obviously a psychopath.
And by the way, the lawyer's brother client
That seems
confidentiality,
inappropriate.
whatever, but like probably knows even more details than our public.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How
Oh, yeah.
the fuck
Yes.
do you make that decision?
Well,
Like, you know who I want to date.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's
this
the thing,
woman
like, maybe
who
he
had
has
sex-
some sort of like maybe he's got some sort of
Yeah.
thing going on
Where
not
he
well.
felt that she would understand him.
Maybe he's her surrogate, Paul Bernardo.
That reminds me of Casey Anthony and her sleeping with her attorney.
Yeah, because she did that too.
Yeah.
Listen to the last podcast on left.
Casey
left
Anthony was pretty
episode
hot,
of that.
though.
No,
Yeah.
she wasn't.
Objectively, but I still want
don't
her to
know.
burn like
Oh,
in
as
a
would
fire. And
I would kick her out of bed.
No, it's respectable.
But that is a psychopath thing too, right? Like they're attractive. Isn't that a classic thing we
yeah,
think
they're
about? We think about
charming. They can turn it on, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like think about Christian Bale and
Oh, yeah.
that isn't the movie called Psycho?
Psycho. Yeah. Well, it's based on the book.
The book, and
Yeah.
he's like
American Psycho.
super hot in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's like outrageous, but he's a flaming psychopath.
well,
He's
Ted
fucking
Bundy.
crazy.
Even
Ted
after
Bundy.
even
Yeah,
after
he's super
everything
charming, yeah.
He married a woman so that he could.
People were sending him love letters in prison.
Well, people are sending love letters in prison to the recent school shooters. What the hell's that guy's name? That white guy. They're all white guys.
They're all white guys.
Yeah. So narrow down for us.
All I can think of is Dylan Roof, but he's not the one.
Not Dylan Roof. The most recent one that wasn't the one that from the YouTube.
Isn't his last name Cruz or something?
Something like that.
Anyway.
Like he's getting like love letters.
I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me.
Fuck you, asshole.
We're calling out Mike Boudet from Sword and Scale because fuck that guy.
And sorry, what is, for the listeners, what is Sword and Scale?
It was like the first true crime podcast. It basically had a built-in audience because there was nothing like it before.
Yes.
But Mike Boudet, he basically says like, around every corner there is a crazy person waiting to strike and murder you because all crazy people are naturally inclined to be violent, and he's
they
just
love corners.
Oh yeah, and
wasn't this the thing that you were talking about Ood, last time? How about the schizophrenic? Yeah, like there's a schizophrenic around every corner.
He's the one
guy
who fucked up. That pissed me off.
I hate
terrible.
him.
He also put out a Vince Lee episode, and in that
it was really it was awful.
And outside the podcast, he is known to harass women. There's lots of screenshots of him asking
for nudes and being like, "Hey, well, why don't you send me a picture?" Like a woman sent a picture of herself in like one of the Sword and Scale t-shirts, and he's like, "How about one without the shirt?"
And he uses sexually aggressive language when dealing with women who dissent.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit. So yeah, call him out. Fuck him.
Yeah, he's an asshole.
And his sponsors are walking.
Yeah.
Like in droves, they're leaving him. So good.
Okay.
Don't listen to his shitty fucking podcast
And
anymore.
The most recent incident that broke the camel's back was
He called like a chick fat for like no reason.
Yeah, a fan of his basically messaged him on Twitter. Not messaged him, she added him. Is that the right term?
Well, like message, yeah.
And she
tweeted at
said,
him.
if I die, I hope you cover it on the podcast. Because
she was being funny and she loved the podcast.
And he said, you'll die of
Heart disease. Heart disease.
Heart disease.
Because she was like a cute, bigger girl. Like bigger than normal. And like that's disgusting. Like, oh, I fucking hate him. I had his podcast added for like a moment on my Podcast Addict app. And then as soon as I found out what a piece of shit he is, like I completely like I've listened to like one episode of his.
And there's 1,000 pieces of shit like him out there, but the reason
he's the biggest name right now.
And has an audience.
Yeah, and he has a big audience because he was the first one, and like,
and
I'm sure his podcast is. I don't actually. I can't be sure, but
and as another voice in this medium, I think it's our duty to call out it. And he is the face of true crime podcasting.
Yeah, which he shouldn't be.
No, because he gives the rest of us a bad name.
Yeah, we're not all shitty.
Yeah, I'm a little bit shitty, but not.
We're all a little bit.
Well,
shitty.
not that kind of shitty though.
But we don't think that schizophrenics are hiding around every corner, waiting to like slit your throat.
Yeah.
No,
because
that's white Christian men.
Be safer.
Exactly, like it's unreasonable.
If schizophrenics were waiting around every corner, the corners would be slightly safer.
Yeah, because they'll just be hanging out there.
Yeah,
I think it's only people find schizophrenics scary just because they have a different experience of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and like unknown is scary.
Yeah,
but fear doesn't mean danger all the time.
No.
Like I am afraid on planes, but I'm not in danger on planes compared to driving or whatever else.
I'm afraid of butterflies, but I'm not in danger from butterflies. They're just unpredictable and disgusting.
Yeah.
Except the poisonous ones.
Oh, but I don't tell me about poisonous butterflies.
Yeah. And as with most things, there's multiple layers and nuance to the issue of mental illness, and treating it in the black and white issue of like crazy people scary, they're gonna kill us. Like it's just simplistic and ignorant
and reductionist. It's
totally,
stupid.
Yeah. Get educated, people.
Yeah.
I am just a matter
I see the sparrow as it flies and glides. Its flights will borrow the breeze and sky. If I borrow the breeze, will I get to leave? See what's hidden, see what's unseen. To be up high and look down below, be fully alive, no ribbons and bows. Ooh, ooh, ooh. My roots go deep and spread far and wide, but I cannot leap or touch the sky. If I borrow the breeze, will I get to leave? See what's hidden, see what's unseen. To be up high and look down below, be fully alive, no ribbons and bows. Ooh, 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 ooh. Sparrow, oh sparrow, where did you go? Did you take the seeds I sow? That's just fine, they are not mine. But first, let me tell them goodbye, goodbye. I go on for miles, the sun I embrace. It causes so many smiles, but it's only a taste. If I borrow the breeze, will I get to leave? See what's hidden, see what's unseen. To be up high and look down below, be fully alive, no ribbons and bows. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
And our palate cleanser this week is The Meadow and Sparrow by an artist named Little Sailboat. She's a wonderful young woman from Minnesota, and she's found great joy in writing and performing music, and it allows her to process all the events and noise around her daily life. So thank you for your happy little song to end out. It's quite a tragic story. On the after show this week, we'll be reading a few iTunes reviews and reading a really insightful comment from Instagram. Alrighty, we have 4 new iTunes reviews, and I think these come from the United States iTunes, because you have to switch countries every time, so maybe we'll try a different country next after show. So from Ashley Michelle, she says, great storytelling and sound production made for a very good listening experience. Give it a try. Thank you very much, Ashley. From K-Grad Stu, this is one of my new favorite podcasts. I love crime and mystery, but I've reached the point in a lot of my other podcasts where I've heard about most of the cases. I like that Occultae Veritatis has covered some cases I was less aware of. In addition to talking about some other interesting dark topics like Nazi experiments, Ood, Sage, and Leon are hilarious, and they tend to throw in some really awesome discussions of healthy sexuality into the mix, which is an area of my work. Oh man, we would love to have you on if you're ever in the area. So I love it. Send these guys some money so they don't have to keep drinking Bud Light and cupcake wine. I always thought from the start our trashiness and how we get our poisons from dollar stores and all that, I think that's part of our charm. So even if we do make this a living and we make a little bit of money doing it, I think we'll still stick with, the beer and wine of the people. But, if we make a little money, maybe we'll be able to try some premium stuff once in a while. Thank you very much, K-Grad Stu. This is from Dayhawk23. These 3 Canadians do an awesome job of looking into the weird and macabre topics. Especially intriguing are the episodes related to mental health with fresh and interesting perspectives. Oh yeah, we like to bust stigmas, and the stigmas surrounding mental health and criminality are some of the most stigmatized out there, with the main conception thinking that mentally ill people have a higher rate of criminality and stuff like that, to the point where you should be worried about them, and that just doesn't hold water when you look at it. So thank you very much, Dayhawk23. From My Free Will. Great show. I think the host commentary and voice tones match great, plus they pay attention to detail by finding audio that adds to the podcast experience. Would recommend. We always try and do that, because if you can get it out of the horse's mouth, that's going to be the most accurate. Otherwise, you're just going to have it, filtered through an article that was read by one of us, that was written down in another medium, and then read. And that's just a game of telephone that loses accuracy. So whenever I can, I like to provide the real context and words being said. If you'd like to be on the next iTunes review, just send it into the podcast. Just whatever service you use, leave a review. It helps bring us up the charts, and hell, you get it read on the podcast, so we always love that. Something else I want to do is read an insightful comment left by one of our Instagram followers. Her name is Lindsay Morales. And she gave me permission to use her name, and she was speaking in terms of a meme I was sharing. And the meme had to do with people who are attracted to serial killers. And she said, I've always wondered if this is really a function of these dudes being locked up or dead more so than being horrendously violent. Are there women out there seeking serial killers who are on the loose to date, and they do survive the experiment if they try it? Because being that close to horrific violence is such a turn-on. It makes more sense a damaged person would seek out somebody who is in prison for horrible crimes to me. Like once Ted Bundy is in prison, you're free to focus on his dominant personality or whatever else attracts you to him while having all-around control in the relationship. There's no reason to be insecure. He's not going to go anywhere or do anything except minimally existing. You can leave him at will, but can still get whatever psychological benefit you think you get from loving a serial killer, whether it's notoriety or attachment to a quote-unquote strong man. She was embarrassed by the length of her Instagram post, but you know what? If you need to talk more to express what you think, that's great. And I think this post brings up a great comment. What causes not only some women, but actually a great number of women, and men as well, when there's a woman serial killer, to pursue relationships with these people? Something I read that was persuasive, but I'm just a layman, so anything can be persuasive to me. But anyways, they said that the excitement of dating somebody who's famous and dangerous adds some excitement, and that can be psychologically benefiting. You can, every time you talk to them or correspond with them or get a letter from them or they pay attention to you or you talk to them, you get, that dopamine, those love chemicals in your brain. And because they're notorious and because they're famous and because they're dangerous, you get a little rush. But you are protected from them by them being locked up and being inaccessible to get you. So the combination of excitement from the notoriety and the danger and you also feeling safe enough to approach them because they're controlled by the state in a prison, it kind of creates a little comfortable situation where you can approach danger while not actually being in danger. That's my loose interpretation. Of course, when we do its own featured episode, there's an episode I want to do on people who love killers and love serial killers and all that, and we'll go much deeper into that, and hopefully we'll bring somebody on who knows what the fuck they're talking about, so I'm just not just pulling shit out of my ass. Anyways, this has been the after show. If you guys want to get on it, just email or voicemail on our website, www.ovpod.ca. On the contact page on that site, there's lots of ways you can contact us, and we'll read it out. If you make a really insightful comment on our Facebook group or on our Twitter or Facebook or in Instagram or anything like that, we'll probably read it. We like fan interaction. That's what this entire after show is based around, is having somebody besides us talk and hearing the voices of our little occultist fans. If you really like us and want to support us, you can go on to Patreon. Patreon is a little site where you can give us a monthly payment of up to $5 or more, and it helps pay the bills around here, and it helps feed our hungry children, or in my case, helps put kibble in my ferrets' mouths. So yeah, if you really like us and want to support us and maybe get some bonus episodes and some other goodies, check out our Patreon, www.patreon.com/ovpod. That's enough bloviating for me. I've been Oud Gallifrey. Thank you very much for joining in. You have a lovely week. I hope all your dreams come true, and remember, beating up a clown is still considered assault in most countries.